Howdy, I'm here for the tour.
Yeah, come on in.
So I don't know how it works, like, with getting in. Do I just pay you guys here, or?
Yeah, so we have, we'll have you sign in our guest book and we'll take admission here. We'll give it, what brings you in today?
The ghosts. I heard that it was haunted, and I'm a ghost hunter, so.
Alrighty. Well, we'll see how active the house is. I haven't heard anything.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't had any experiences. Depends on who you talk to.
Oh, I have. I've been outside here one time, and I heard someone laughing in here, like a ghost. I heard a ghost laughing, like I could audibly hear it too, and it picked up. I'm just gonna, can I grab my EMF meter?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to see if any ghosts are following us. Should be in here somewhere.
Alrighty, well, welcome into the Bigelow House. We like to start our tours with our land acknowledgement, which was written for us by the Squaxin Island tribe. So the Olympia Historic Society and Bigelow House Museum honors and respects the Squaxin Island people. From time immemorial, Squaxin people have lived in harmony with the water, land, and air, and whose current generations continue nurturing this rich heritage. The city of Olympia and the museum are located on the traditional homelands of the Squaxin Island tribe, and that includes, this area was also where the Squaxin village de Chasse once stood as well. We have a couple of native artifacts in the house. We're not really sure what the exact provenance of them are, but we have a couple of woven items here, the beads, which are possibly trade beads, and then we have a basket further in that we believe came from the selling and trading for shellfish.
Oh,
Lots
cool.
of Squaxin Island people would sell shellfish, and they sold them in baskets, and so you could have your little reusable basket to buy your shellfish in. Yeah, this is the earliest photo we have of the house from 1866. We know that the house was, we don't know when exactly the house was built. We know it was completed by 1860 though. It was built by Oregon Trail pioneers Daniel and Anne Elizabeth Bigelow, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in the next room. But yeah, you can see it's a Carpenter Gothic house. So the Gothic part comes from use of the pointed window, which we'll see when we go upstairs, and the steep roofs, and then the Carpenter is from all of this little extra ornamentation that you could actually, by this time, you could actually order that from the mills and the factories instead of having carpenters have to do it by themselves, which is why you get a little more decoration, because you didn't have a carpenter having to carve, you know, like 20, 30, 40 of these little individual balustrades.
I like the wallpaper, it's cool.
Yeah, the wallpaper, and we can look around the corner, we've got some of the layers of it, but the wallpaper for the most part is reproductions. The house was lived in by the same family for 3 generations. In the 1990s, the last couple to live in the house, Daniel and Mary Ann, you see here, they sold the house to the Olympia Historic Society and Bigelow House Museum, and they set up a living trust, so they lived in the house until 2005, which is when they both passed. And in the 1990s, a lot of restoration was done. You have to bring the outside of the house was brought back to what we can see in the photo, and a lot of internal restoration was done as well, and part of that was going through the layers of wallpaper and then choosing which ones we wanted to portray. But yeah, as you can see, we've got the houses up here all by itself on the hill. This is a photo of Olympia from about 1870. As far as we know, the house is the only structure in this photo that's still standing. It's one of the oldest standing structures in the area. And then, as you can see, Olympia changed quite quickly. So this is from 1879, I believe. You can see the house right here. And you can see Olympia is already starting to get bigger. And, you know, we're getting the trains and the steamboats and kind of a little bustling port city of our own. Yeah.
Do you know who haunts this place? Or?
I do not.
I
I
don't
did
know.
not. I mean, it was lived in by the one family, so I'll tell you a little bit more about each, like, different members of the family as we moved through the house. And, you know, various members lived here or moved out. Some of them, you know, lived through the end of their lives. But yeah, almost everything in the house belonged to the family at one point or another. Benefit of it just being one family that lived in here. There's a couple of the fashion items as we get close. A couple of the dresses later in the house are on loan, but for the most part, and then like the skirts are reproduction skirts, because the streets were very muddy and they would get worn out, is our guess at least, as to why we don't have any more of those that exist. But yeah, we can step here into the library, or the room we have set up. Parts of the house throughout the years as the family grew. The original couple had 9 children, so obviously you need a bigger house.
Yeah.
Our cardboard cutout for the room this room is Daniel Bigelow. He was born in New York and studied law out there, and then he moved he took the Oregon Trail out west in his 30s and arrived in Olympia. He first arrived in Portland and then took the boat up to Olympia in the fall of 1851. And when he was out here, he was a practicing lawyer, and then he also was part of the territorial legislature and was active in local politics, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But yeah, this is his wedding photo with his wife, Anne Elizabeth White Bigelow.
Oh, that's my last name too. That's strange.
Yeah. I don't know how common it is, but maybe there's a relation in there somewhere. But Anne Elizabeth moved with her family over on the Oregon Trail as well, also arriving in the Olympia-Lacey area in the fall of 1851. We don't know exactly when they met, but we know they got married in 1854, one of the two. But yeah, Anne Elizabeth, when she got out here, she was a school teacher for a couple of years. She's taught in a one-room farmhouse, and taught like some local families. So that was that was a pretty common profession for young women. For a significant amount of time, women could not work after they'd gotten married, so young women would walk and be teachers, and then after they got married, they would go on and, be a wife. The land was, so they got married in 1854. When they got married, she was about 18 years old and he was about 30, in his early 30s. So quite a significant age gap there, but that wasn't entirely unusual for the time. But they had a lot of similar beliefs and values. So they were both advocates. They were both strong Methodists, so they were active in the Methodist Church. They were both advocates for education, her being a teacher, and a number of their daughters were also trained as teachers. They were advocates for women's suffrage, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the next room. And then they both believed in temperance. So we've never served alcohol in the house. They've never served alcohol in the house, and as far as we know, no alcohol. A couple things about the land. So the land was gained through the Donation Land Claim Act. That was an act that gave, that the U.S. government used to give white Oregon Territory. This plot was 160 acres because Daniel Bigelow claimed it when he was still single, when he was unmarried. Often for married couples, especially later, they could get double of that. But they would get these deeds sent over from the president, signed probably by a secretary, not probably by the actual president, because there were a million of them that they would have had to sign. And one of the things they had to do was they had to prove up their land claims, so that was often included. They planted orchards, but other people would, other agriculture, stuff like that, building on the land to show that you were doing something with it. Yeah, and one of the things that Daniel Bigelow did as a legislator in the territorial legislature is he and the legislature put together a petition so that fellow Oregon Trail pioneer George Bush, who was a black man, he came over and he tried to make a land claim, and due to his race it was denied, and so Daniel Bigelow and the legislature helped to put together a petition and have Congress pass a law, actually, in order to, or a memorial. They had to get Congress to be like, hey, yeah, you can have your land. So that was pretty cool that he was able to do that. Yeah, just one of the ways that, despite the fact that it was a racist law, some people were able to get around that in some ways. Step through into what we've got set up as our more formal parlor, where they would host guests, including our cardboard cutout for this room, Susan B. Anthony. As I mentioned, the family was active in the women's suffrage movement. So actually we have, in Washington State, there were women actually were able to get the vote at some point in the 1880s before the court struck it down. So we actually have a photo of a voter registration log from 1889, and you can see on here we have Anne Elizabeth Bigelow and then also her mother. So they both were able to register to vote very briefly before the court took that right away. Women in Washington permanently gained the right to vote in 1910. Well, most women in Washington in 1910, which was 10 years before the national suffrage, the national constitutional amendment, and we were the 5th state, I believe. But yeah, one of the other things, other than registering and being active in local suffrage groups, that the family did was they did help. Daniel Bigelow, as part of his work in the legislature, helped to host Susan B. Anthony, who came out in 1871. She spoke at the territorial legislature, and then she also came and visited the house for dinner, which she talks about in her diary. The family legend is that that's the chair she sat in when she came to visit, but we have no real way of confirming that, but it's kind of fun to think that that is true. Yeah. We can step back into our back parlor, or the family parlor. The original family, the Bigelows, they had 9 kids.
That's a lot.
5 boys and 4 girls. They had 2 of their sons died quite young. One of them was quite young, and the other one was in maybe his late teens. And then of the other sons, one was a lawyer, one was a dairyman, and then one owned a business as well, was a business owner. And there were a number, and then all of their daughters were trained, were educated, and then trained as school teachers, and we'll talk a little bit more about them when we get upstairs, get upstairs to Margaret's room. Yeah, and as you can see, we got a lot of different instruments and a lot of artwork. One of the ways that people got busy in, back before stuff like TV and all that, would be to play music or create art. So a lot of the shell frames were created by members of the family, supposedly from shells that they found locally, though some of the shells are not local to the Pacific Northwest, so we're not really sure how they accessed some of those shells. And this is one of those lone dresses I was talking about. I believe this one is from a private collection, or someone had it in their house, but an example of the fashion of the time. Yeah. This is our dining room. It was a later addition to the house, and it might have originally been a kitchen to start with. The original kitchen would have actually been a separate building because of concerns about fire. If you're going to have an open flame kitchen, it's best not to put it in your wooden building, in your wooden house. So that would have been a separate building most likely. But at some point this was possibly the kitchen. The built-in and pass-through, these wood ones, were put in probably in the 1920s or the 1930s. And the kitchen back through there was updated in the 1950s, when the last generation had full control over the house. The house, at various points, was a multi-generational household. So you'll notice when we like back in the library, there's the staircase goes in front of the window, and we'll come down that staircase later. So the house plan, the like floor plan of the house has changed a lot, being divided up into separate little apartments as various generations of the family lived in it.
Nice.
Yeah. Here we can go up our stairs over here.
That's a cool painting.
And up here, we set up as Margaret's room. Our cardboard cutout for the room. Margaret was the youngest daughter of the first Daniel and Anne Elizabeth of that first family. She lived most of her life in this house. She passed away in 1937. But yeah, she is an example of one of the girls she was trained as a teacher. She went to school over in Ellensburg and then also at Columbia University to be a teacher. She taught at Olympia High School, and then and a number of other places, including these photos are from her time in Hawaii, where she taught at a Methodist school out there, Methodist school for Korean girls out there. So she was doing some traveling, as you can see from some of these other photos. She liked to be out and about on the Sound and in Olympia, and was very active and excited to explore and learn more about the world. And as and they're actually, I think the thought is there might be either a chimney or a fireplace in this wall, because the little quirk of this room goes all the way around, which is always a little surprising. Like, why did they have just a big block there? But I think it's like a chimney or a fireplace or something. Another example of how much they've changed the house over the years. In here we have two quilts. This one on the left is we actually had it looked at by some historians and quilt people, and they think it dates from the Oregon Trail era. Not a specific provenance on that. But a local quilting association did a remake, so kind of giving us an idea of what it would have looked like perhaps when it first was made, before it traveled across the country and, has been there for over 100 years. So pretty impressive to look at. Over there, and then this brings us into the 20th century and more up to modern times. So as I mentioned downstairs, the house was lived in by three generations of the family, and the last generation to live in the house, another Daniel, and then Mary Ann, they lived in the house after they got married in the 1930s. This is her wedding dress here. And then they moved into the house after that. When they moved into the house in the 1930s, they were sharing it with both Margaret and then also Margaret's sister Ruth. Ruth was the last of the original family to live in the house, and she passed away in 1950 when she was 90 years old. And at that point is when this last generation was able to live in the entire house unimpeded. They had 4 boys. It's pretty crazy. When they first moved into the house, their little apartment was this room, and then the room down there, which is our office right now. So they were pretty limited in where they could go. But Mary Ann was very interested in history and very interested in the history of the house. We have a picture of her here where she's dressed up in period clothing, so she's dressed up like a pioneer woman, and she's sitting in front of the fireplace, and it's actually in this chair in front of this fireplace, and you can see that door didn't exist when this photo was taken. Oh. So you can see it's just another example of how much the house has changed over the years. Yeah. But yeah, they're Mary Ann and Daniel are who we have to thank for having this museum. They're the ones that created that sold the house and created the living trust, and we're like, we want this to become a museum. We want to have we want to hold on to all of the artifacts that have been passed down throughout the years so that we can turn this into a museum. So it's pretty cool to see. Here, and then as we go through here, you're going to want to watch your step.
Okay.
Because this was made before building codes. So another example of the way the house is set up. This is that window we were looking at from down the big Gothic window that you can see in the front of the house, and they would have had at one point a view of the water through here, through the front of their house, but you know, due to new trees and buildings and everything, that kind of brings it down a bit. But yeah, would have been another bedroom at some point, and you can see some of the different items they would have used. And you've got the big mutton chop sleeve dress, which is always fun to see the big shoulders on it.
Yeah.
Old sewing machine, and this table's got the yardstick built into it, which is very nice for sewing.
Yeah.
Kept you busy.
Oh, it's moving. Did you see that? Do you see it moving?
Oh, it's like shaking a little?
Yeah, why is it doing that?
I don't know. It's an old house, it'll, like if you step too hard, things will...
Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't a ghost.
Yeah, it's fair. You gotta be thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, well, step down these stairs, they're a little steeper, so watch your step, and especially coming out of that room. As you can tell, this is not where that staircase originally was, because there's that window being covered up. At one point, the bedroom right up there, and like this room, and this area here were one of those apartments that I was talking about earlier. I think this area might have been a kitchen or a bathroom, or, you know, switched between the two. But if you're interested in the wallpapers, the photos, there's photos from the restoration, but then you can see we have pieces of the wallpaper, so you can see all of the different layers, which I always think is really interesting to look at. Over time, it would have been easier to just put with all, like they had, you know, coal burning stoves, wood burning stoves, oil lamps, all of that smoke. It would have just been easier to slap another layer of wallpaper on than try and repaint anything or clean anything. And that's why you'd often see wallpaper on ceilings as well, because smoke's gonna rise up and gather up there and be a mess. And I think one of the reasons we think that dining room was an original kitchen as well is because it had the most layers in the house, and if you're cooking in there, that's gonna make sense.
Do you think I could do like a spirit box session in here during the last like 10 minutes?
We might be able to do that. It might
just to see if there's any like ghosts that want to talk to the spirit box I have.
Yeah, we might be able to do that. It might depend on if we've got another tour coming through, because I know those can be pretty loud sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Step out through the kitchen, or we can take a look at the back, or doors open here. We have a variety of the different journals and stuff here if you're interested in any of those. Oh yeah, it's nice and warm out. But yeah. Did you have any other questions, or we can go back through the kitchen? I know we just kind of looked into it earlier. We can go take a peek.
Yeah, I just kind of want to wander around.
Yeah, you can take a peek in the kitchen, and then you can wander a bit if you'd like.
How much longer can I stay?
You can stay for a while if you want to. Yeah, wander around, take a look. It'll depend on if we get anybody else. Otherwise, we'll probably start cleaning up. It'll depend on if we get anyone in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then if we don't, we usually start shutting things down. But
Okay.
Yeah. Kitchen's through there. Yeah, you're welcome to wander for a bit. I guess that you avoid, sitting on some of the furniture or touching things too much.
Yeah, I won't do any of that. I'm just trying to see if there's any ghosts around.
See if you're getting any readings.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of readings here, but... Any ghosts, feel free to touch this device in my hand. Let me know you're nearby. If there's any ghosts in here, feel free to touch this device. It'll let me know you're here. Did it just go off? Can you touch that again? Hi. Are you her? Whoever just touched that. Okay, I think I'm gonna get the spirit box now. Some ghost just touched that shit. Hello. Is it a ghost? Oh, actually. What's your name? Was it you who touched the EMF, or was it someone else? Are you a fan of Star Wars? I probably don't even know what Star Wars is. You can touch either of these to not let me know you're going. Hiding? Where are you hiding? There. On the chair. Are you on the chair? Yeah, I think this ghost is on the chair. Let's see. 5. Franklin. Who's Franklin? come over here and touch this device. That was me hitting the ball. If you touch this, it'll light up for 5 seconds. Can you say Bigelow? What color is my hat? No, I can't see it. There might be a male spirit. You know, I think there's a female spirit up here. Female ghost. Oh my god, the cat ball just went off. What the hell? That was not me. How old are you? What year did you die? Are you a male or a female? Forever young.
down up here, just a couple of them. I have. Well,
So I heard the laughing ghost. Like around here. I wonder if he's the laughing ghost.
I can give you cash.
I don't remember that being open before. Oh.